Welcome back to the Gen 20 podcast. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Marina.
And today we're talking about the concept of having it all. Can we have it all? What does that mean? What does it mean for us? And what gets in the way of us having it all?
Yeah, so first things first, what does having it all mean? I think typically it means, I feel like it's a concept that's brought up for women more than men. Like, I don't think I've ever heard of a man worrying about having it all, but that's actual marketing campaigns towards women of like, I think having the family and the romantic relationship and the job and the car and the house. Like, I think that's
And the fitness and the good hair.
Yeah, Becky with
And the
the good
boots with the
hair
fur.
and the boots with the fur. Yeah, but it's like it's this like very pressured societal standard that or expectation that women should have it all and want it all and want all the same thing. So we're here to talk about that because I don't know, I think that's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I think just thinking of it, especially like more as I've become a mom, like why, I don't know, like why is there more pressure on women to have it all?
Or why is there a question that we can't like have it all in general?
Yeah, why don't we just inherently have it?
Yeah. Why is it a question?
Yeah.
I think of my guy friends, I don't think any of them have ever worried about one, their biological clock, which is just a conversation for another day. And they don't worry about whether or not they're going to have a romantic relationship and if that will fulfill them or not.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't worry about their jobs in the same way that I've worried about mine. It's fascinating. I think the first thing we have to do is define all for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We can't be comparing it or following a script from them or they or whoever over in the society that decided what all was.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea of all is kind of like shifting, right? Like from what it might have been like in, I guess, the 1950s, 1960s, like most women at that point weren't really working outside of the home, and they were doing more like home care types of things, like careers in that way. And I mean, not that women weren't doing other things at this time, like obviously they were, but I feel like in general that was the trend. And then like more women started getting higher education,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of started changing. And like now we have this conversation of like where once a woman announces she's like pregnant, it's like over for her,
Yeah.
in terms of like her career and things like that.
Yeah. And so this concept of having it all is such a patriarchal like theory because you're taking women who were once considered just good for child rearing and home guarding and or homekeeping or what housekeeping. I don't know the
Whatever it is that they used to
homemaking.
do.
Homemaking is the word I was looking for. But it's the addition of having a career. It's like, oh well, could you be a mother and a employee? I don't know. And it's like, well,
Yeah, like how could you do both, and how could you possibly be good at both?
yeah, like your
How could you
children
also travel? How could you also be a good friend and a good cook?
and a good wife, good partner.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't think these same questions are going towards men. And that frustrates me. And I think now more than ever, our lives look different to one another. And so my all might be different than your all. And that's neither of us are wrong or right. It's just what's good for each of us. And we can't be holding ourselves to standards meant for other people.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that having it all it's definitely like different person to person. And I think that that's really what we should embrace. And like when you're looking at this idea of like, can I have it all? Like, really, you need to be really introspective and figure out what that means for you.
Exactly. Yeah. It's more, can I have all of the things I want that will help me feel happy and fulfilled and satisfied? Not can I have it all to measure up to like society's standards that don't mean anything.
Yeah, like other people's ideas of having it all or opinions, even.
It's like the red carpet interviews when they ask the women who they're wearing or what they're wearing, and then they ask the men what was the most fulfilling part about filming the movie. And it's like,
Mhm.
first things first, let's stop asking gendered questions and just say, hey, if you're not going to ask this male counterpart if he's worried about having it all, you shouldn't be asking me that either. And
Yeah, or, like, what underwear he's wearing with his suit.
I mean, maybe I want to know that. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I literally do not care. Um, but yeah, it's stuff like that where I know my mom worked in finance for her entire career and often was mistaken as a secretary, even though she was a manager because she was a woman.
Yeah.
And that's bullshit.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure no one ever mistook my dad for the admin when he was walking in on sites of his job.
Yeah. Probably not. That's really interesting. Maybe we should have your parents on the podcast, Marina.
That would be fun. I'd be very curious. Oh, we'll talk about that after. But it's I just remember one time I was talking to my dad about how I was worried about being good enough at my job, and he said, "I don't think I've ever worried about that." And I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is like an inherent male quality or a societally trained quality, but
Mhm.
I don't want to worry about this anymore. So how do I let go of this?" Because
Yeah, where did you purchase that confidence?
yeah,
Where can I buy it?
exactly. Like where did that come from?
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
it goes into having it all is this it's the question then infers that we don't already have it all, that we are already lacking something, which we're not.
Mhm.
We're not. If you
Yeah.
want something, you can have it
Yeah.
unless it's illegal or harmful to others, and then like maybe reorganize your priorities.
For sure. And now we'd like to introduce you to our sponsor, the All of Us Research Program. All of Us is from the National Institutes of Health, and it's the largest and most diverse health resource ever.
The pandemic has exposed racial disparities like few other events in recent U.S. history, but this is nothing new. Historically, young and diverse communities have been underrepresented in health research, and when certain groups of people are left out of health research, they miss out on the opportunity to benefit from what is learned. As members of the most diverse generations ever, it's up to us to make a difference. Research can help us learn more about mental health conditions such as depression and how it affects those of us who've been previously left out of the research. We can look at the data inside all of us and use it to improve what we know. Young adults are at the epicenter of the mental health crisis and hold valuable information about the future of our psychological health.
In our 20s, many of us struggle with our mental health, Marina and I included. In fact, my anxiety was so debilitating at one point that I didn't leave the house by myself for 3 years. By sharing our experiences, we will be able to help all of us gather data to better serve those struggling with mental health in the future. All of Us is aiming to reach 1 million participants. All eligible adults over 18 living anywhere in the United States can join. To help achieve this goal, Marina and I would love if you would share All of Us with at least one other person in your life, because it's not just about you and me, it's about all of us. Join the revolution at joinallofus.org/Gen20. So, Marina and I kind of took this question and we both sort of thought on it about like what having it all means for both of us, because we're both kind of like in different parts of our lives, like in terms of like family, careers, like we're doing kind of different things. So our definitions, even though we're only like a year apart, like 9 months apart in age, like
So much younger.
no, 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 no. I'm very immature. Everyone should know that. Like, it's like, I don't know, like, there's just different things of what that means. So for Marina, what does having it all mean to you?
For me, honestly, it's building a life that I don't need a vacation from. So I want to have work-life balance and financial security and time for building and maintaining my friendships and relationships and like taking trips not to vacate my life but to explore. And that's what I want out of life and I'm working towards it and I'm not on the same like level of the path as Nicole is. Like I'm single, I have no children. I temporarily live with my mom, but I'm feeling pretty good that I'm having my all right now and working towards more things in the future that I want to incorporate. I think we were kind of talking about this before. we started recording, but this I feel like life has become very achievement oriented where you have to hit these like guidelines or timelines by a certain point in your life or a certain age, and that's so not the case. So
Mhm.
I've really worked hard to let go of those expectations because I definitely in college thought I'd be married with a kid by now because that's just like that was my understanding of being 29. And now I'm I'm not stressed that I do not have children yet. Like I know that will come if it comes. But it's part of my like accepting all that I want and not stressing about what other people might think of where I am right now.
Yeah. I think for me, it's interesting that you talk about, like, a timeline, I think, because in my head, like, I just always thought that I would have kids when I was 28, and that's what happened, and, like, I'm not sure if I just because I would just was like, "This is what's gonna happen to me,"
Mhm.
that's what happened to me, I don't know. Or if, like, I don't know. I really don't know. But I feel like in my head, I don't have, like, a timeline of how my life is going to go. I've just never, like, thought that way.
Mhm.
I don't know, it's really interesting, but I mean, my life path has been kind of different from yours because, I mean, I met my now husband when I was in high school. I was 15. I'll be 31 this year, so that's, like, almost half my life that we've been together. Um, and, like, I don't know, I guess I just thought we'd always be together, so we just are. I don't know, I guess I should tell him that, you know? I don't know. But, yeah, so, I mean, we got married when we were 21? I don't know, 22?
Oh
What year
yeah,
was 2012? How old was I?
you
22?
were
I don't know.
22, yeah.
Yeah, I think I would have just turned 22 when we got
It sounds
married.
so young now.
I know. Right? But, it just I don't know, like, it just made sense to do it then. I mean, we just had a courthouse wedding, we didn't have, like, a big wedding. I've never been, like, a huge wedding person, like, I'm happy to join in other people's weddings, but for me, I just never dreamed about my wedding.
Mhm.
Like, even now, I don't dream about having a wedding. It
That's
is
fine.
what it is.
It's not part
Yeah.
of your vision of all.
Yeah, it's just what it is, I guess. But basically, like, I think for me, what I think of having it all is that, like, no area of my life that I want to focus on is, like, slipping away from me, you
Mhm.
know? So, I don't I have a job where I don't have to show up to it every single day. Like, I don't have to go to work 9 to 5, so I tend to work in chunks when I'm, like, very motivated for certain things, and then, like, I am a huge at prioritizing rest. I think rest should be a major part of your life,
Mhm.
and someone, like, recently on Instagram asked me, like, how I'm able to do so much, and I think it's because I rest, like, 70% of the time.
Yeah, you're like a cat where you sleep all day so that you have that energy to pounce and hunt, but, like,
Yeah.
Nicole does not sleep all day. It was a metaphor of, like, you rest so that you have the reserves to do the
Yeah.
work you wanna do.
No, I mean, like, I wake up at, like, 7 o'clock, like, almost every single day, and, I mean, I'm with my toddler most of the day.
Mhm.
We're doing things, we have activities, okay, we have a letter of the week, color of the week. Who has to come up with all those activities? Me.
Yeah, especially,
And,
like,
like
your your role as mom also turned into, like, preschool teacher because you can't send him to daycare right now, so
yeah, so I just wanna make sure he's, like, learning some stuff. Like, it's not, like, hardcore, I don't make him sit down and look at the chalkboard, like, it's we try to make it fun. But I
Mhm.
like to have some direction to, like, what we're doing, but that's, like, 30 minutes a day. That's just part of my parenting philosophy.
Yeah.
It's not a strict 30 minutes, just so everyone knows. But, like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, for me, resting, it's not, like, trying like, and, like, not like, "Oh, my kid is distracted for 10 minutes, let me try to get in some work." Like, I'm just like, "Eh, I'll get to it."
Mhm.
when I get to it. Or, like, I mean, some days there's stuff, like, I have to do, which, is about being disciplined to do it, but for me, resting is, like, a state of mind. Like, I'm allowed to think about other things. I'm allowed to explore my other interests,
Yeah,
my
I
hobbies, and read books.
we should maybe have a whole episode about this, about rest, because I feel like since I've incorporated rest more into my life, I feel like I'm more productive
Mhm.
with the things I want to be doing than I was when I was just like crawling at everything, trying to like do it all and achieve and reach these
Yeah.
impossible standards because I was just burnt
Yeah.
out all the time.
Yeah, because I think in some ways rest is just, like, not putting pressure on yourself to, like, do things. Like, some days I'm like, I could, make myself work for this long, but I'm like, I don't really wanna do that right now.
Hmm.
So I don't.
Yeah. And I personally think the whole 9 to 5, 40-hour week work structure is really antiquated and not helpful because I like a lot of the times the things I need to get done in a day, I can do in like 2 or 3 hours.
Mhm.
And a lot of what exhausted me working in an office, especially when I was I always call it underemployed, where I was just like overqualified for what I was doing and also underpaid.
Mhm.
But I would be exhausted because I would do the like 2 hours of work I had in the morning and then have to look like I was working for the rest of the 6 hours that I was at the office.
Yeah.
Like that's not helpful.
Yeah, so for me, I guess in my, like, post-college adult life, I've never had, like, a 9 to 5 job, and the only experience that I've had with that type of position is I did, like, a work-study position, where I worked in the College of Education at my school and in their, like, finance office, and basically, it was just, like, little admin tasks, like filing things, like, whatever, that kind of stuff. And I had to fill out like expense reports from all the receipts people turned in. And I remember my boss gave me this like massive stack. It was probably like 2 feet tall. And she was like, this will probably take you like 2 or 3 weeks. And I was like finished in like 3 hours. And she was just like, I'm not sure if she was insinuating that I should just take my time going through them. But I was like, honestly, why am I dragging this out for weeks?
Hmm.
There's no point in me doing that. Like, and that's pretty much when I knew I didn't want to work in an office or, like, at a 9 to 5 job.
Yeah, I like we're kind of hedging our bets on other conversations now, but I just didn't know 9 to 5 there was an option outside of a 9 to 5 and could never figure out why I didn't fit in and was so unhappy until I realized there are other ways to do things.
Mhm,
Um, but I think that comparison, just to bring it back, is a huge part of this like fear and stress around the concept of having it all. And like our lives are unique. They aren't meant to look identical, and we're not all supposed to do the same thing or have the same trajectory. And so
mhm.
that I think gets in the way of us uh, having our own all is by kind of pursuing what we think we should be pursuing or what other people expect of us, when really the only person who matters is you. And maybe if you have a like
Mhm.
permanent partner, they matter too. But uh, it's really this comparison and like not being honest with yourself that's going to hold you back.
Yeah, I think just there are different things that kinda get in the way of us having it all and reaching our own definition of, like, what that means, and one thing we've already, touched on is how we define it to ourselves, so
Mhm.
I think one thing to really look at is, like, if you are unhappy with where you're at in your life, because essentially that's what it comes down to, right? Because you don't have all that you want. You kind of need to define better what having it all means to you and what that looks like in your life and how you can achieve that.
Yeah, like realistic goals. For example, I would really love to own a house. That is not happening for like at least 5 years. And so rather than sit here and stress about how I don't have enough money to buy a house, I like I can't let that be part of my all right now because that's like an end goal for like a few years out. And I think that has brought me a lot of peace in having to, like, with moving back home during the pandemic because I lost my job. I was just like, I'm making this decision s- so I'd have more financial security. Like, I don't need to be paying rent on an apartment that I can't afford because I don't have a job. If I have, I like gratefully have this option.
Yeah.
And that is letting me work towards what I want for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think in your case, that's what I would have done too, like, if I had that available to me, like, I mean, because for us, like, because of the pandemic, like, we moved from the West Coast back to the East Coast,
Hmm.
and, I mean, our mortgage now is less than half what our rent was in Seattle,
Yeah.
and our house is, like, 4 times the size
Oh my God, it's
with a
beautiful.
yard.
And a yard. And that's like, you got to increase your all of like, you have space for your son to play that's safe
Yeah.
and not like,
Yeah.
so it's huge. It's a huge, I think, also pivoting, being able to like go with the flow and roll with the punches helps us
Yeah.
achieve our all.
Yeah. No, like, when it's time for different things, because, like, also, I mean, being closer to his grandparents has been, I think, a great joy for, like, my son and his grandparents, presumably. I'm not sure if you're listening. Don't tell me if the answer is no.
Oh my gosh, the answer is completely yes. They are in love with your son. How could anyone not be?
Ugh, oh, thanks. You're the sweetest. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's just a season, like, you're not going to live there forever, and I don't think it defines you. And I think, like, you're allowed to decide how much things define you.
Yeah.
Like, you're just like, I'm just staying with my mom right now. Like, I
Yeah.
don't see any problem with that at all.
When I first decided to move home for for financially sound reasons to be able to save money while I looked for a job and built my own business, I still felt this deep shame that I had somehow failed because everybody else in my life wasn't doing this. And it wasn't until I just let go of comparison and listening to what other people are doing or following other people's paths that I came to a point where I was just like, actually, it's really nice to live at home right now.
Mhm.
I lived alone in my apartment, so I would have been completely by myself during the pandemic, and now I have my mom and my mom's dog, my dog, and we have a little backyard so I can sit outside, and
Yeah.
it's been a like blessing, not a curse. And so I think just I've often found that the biggest obstacles in life are self-generated. Like, for
Mhm.
me at least, I get in my own way. I worry too much about what other people think or what I should be doing instead of what I want to be doing. And there's always, the factor of like privilege and financially being able to afford to move home and things like that. But from an achieving my dreams standpoint of having it all, like doubt and fear of failure were keeping me from
Yeah. I
doing what I
think
wanted.
that's, like, one thing, like, because whenever, like, I'm not doing something that I, like, want to be doing, or, like, I'm like, "Oh, why is this so hard?" Because, I mean, of course, I have those times, of course. But, like,
Hmm.
I just, I give myself, like, a mental slap in the face, and I'm like, "Nicole, you are literally getting in your own way." Chris Traeger voice,
Hmm.
okay? Because,
Literally.
like, you are the one preventing yourself from doing this thing, and
Hmm.
it's like, you just need to get over it. Like, I don't know, maybe that's, like, too harsh for, some people, but for me, that's, like, something I need to tell myself where I'm like, "Just get over it." Like, it's not that big of a deal, like, you're making a mountain out of a molehill when it's
Hmm.
like it has such a simple solution, but you're just building it up in your head, you know?
Yeah,
So,
it's true.
I don't know. For me, it's like, just do it. Just get over it. Because I mean, sometimes that's what I need to be told
Hmm.
for myself.
It's true. I think it's it's a good point of how to motivate yourself and how to kind of reframe or regain perspective of what you're working on or what you're working through.
Yeah, because, like, I mean, we do get in our own way most of the time. Because even if it's just like reframing your perspective, I think that makes a massive difference
Yeah.
in how you perceive things.
when I was working on my novel last year, I got so stuck I didn't write for a month because I just was like, well, what if it's not good enough? What if no one buys it? What if everyone thinks what I did is dumb? And I had to finally talk it out with my therapist because I was so paralyzed and I was starting to become like a negative feedback loop in my mind. And
Mhm.
finally I asked myself like, okay, so what if it is bad? That's fine. I
Yeah.
can edit it.
This
I
is
can
this is
write
you telling yourself
more.
to get over yourself.
Yeah, it
Like,
was
get
me
over
just
it,
saying
Marina.
like, yeah, I give you permission. You don't need it, but I give you permission to be crappy at this and move forward. Like what will be. It's going to be okay. So,
Yeah.
I think that's how we have it all. We just let ourselves have it.
Mhm. Yeah. It's very
Yeah,
profound.
I try.
It's like, have you ever seen that movie, The Little Princess? That's what it's called, right? Where her dad goes off to war and he presumably dies. And so
I think
she's
I read the book.
yeah, she's at like this fancy boarding school, and then after her dad dies, and I guess she can't pay the tuition, they move her to the attic to be like one of the cleaning girls. And
Hmm.
then she's like dreaming up all this just food appearing, and then she gets in a lot of trouble because they're like, "You stole this." She's like, "No, I didn't." That's what it
I
reminds me
just
of.
I manifested it
Yeah.
with my mind. Yeah, and
And maybe I'm missing
with
an
my
essential plot line of that movie. I don't know, maybe I should rewatch it. But in my head, that's what you're like conjuring it up, and you're like, yes, I can have it all. In fact, here it is.
yeah. Yeah, and I think manifestation is like a interesting concept that I don't know how I truly believe or don't believe in it, but I do believe in just saying what you want out loud enough helps you believe that you can have it. It's like kind of that fake it till you make it.
Hmm.
So, I use this example when I lived in New York. I really wanted to live with my cousin, and she had a roommate that
Wow, so you
it just seemed like
manifested the roommate moved out. That's like what I'm about to get from this story,
yeah,
am I?
essentially, I just kept saying like, "Hey, when we live together, one day when we live together," and I didn't say like, when your roommate's lease is up, you should kick her out. I kept saying like, "Oh, when we live together, wouldn't it be fun if we had Friday night taco night?" And like, I felt like I willed it that way because I just essentially just believed it would happen.
Hmm.
I did the same thing for grad school. I worked my ass off to get into grad school, but I just believed I would get in, and it
Yeah,
worked.
yeah,
And so we're going to keep working on those things. We're going to keep believing that we can have what we want because we can.
yeah. I think it does make a big difference to have like a mantra. That's essentially what it is. When you're
Mhm.
like saying this thing to yourself over and over again. Because I know we've touched on this before in season one, but Jen Sincero's book, You Are a Badass at Making Money, I felt like it was a really pivotal book for me. Because she has like this
Same.
money mantra where it's like money flows to me freely and easily. And then
Hmm.
I think it's I just finished her habits book. I'm not sure if she says it in the money book or not, but she says money flows to me consistently. And I was like adding that
Ooh,
to
that's
my
a good
mantra
one.
because like money flows to me consistently. Like, yes, that is, freely and easily, but also consistency is very important when it comes to your income,
Hmm.
especially as like a business owner slash freelancer. So
Hmm.
let's all add that into our money mantras.
Yeah. And just the idea of abundance, like it's hard to imagine an abundance of money, but there is an abundance of resources out there,
Hmm.
and money is one of them. And if if you work towards it and believe it will come, I think that takes out a lot of the obstacles and uh, not I'm trying to think of the right word, like not restrictions, but you're less held back.
Yeah. And I think like just having a clear idea of like what you want helps you better attract what you need to have what you
Hmm.
want in life. So yeah, I think like cuz that I mean money is an important part of having it all, I think. Um
Yeah, and it's I think the biggest outside factor obstacle that
yeah, in a lot of ways.
yeah.
Yeah. And then like one thing that we haven't quite touched on, I think we've skated by it a little bit, is kind of like comparing yourself to other people, like in terms of having it all. Because it's like when, I don't know, I feel like, I'm not sure if we've talked about this in a podcast episode or if I've just written about it, but I think comparison is something a lot of people struggle with. But I
Mhm.
don't compare myself to other people, like, ever.
I I love that for you. I want that for me.
I don't
I'm
know.
getting better. I'm getting better. And it's interesting because I think a lot of times comparison is subtle where it's not even like it's you don't even realize you're doing it until you try to catch yourself. Like we were talking
Mhm.
about a friend of yours who has a book deal and my first thought was like, "Oh dang, I wish that were me because I just finished a novel and I want to publish it."
Yeah, but you will get a book
But
deal.
right, and
Just
then I
kidding.
reminded myself like, okay, this is your friend's path and I'm super thrilled for her. Like she deserves it and her book is going to be amazing. But also I can have that too and I will when it's on my on my route.
Mhm.
And so this is one of my favorite phrases. Someone else's success is not my failure.
Yeah.
And it comes back to this abundance thing like we
Yeah.
can both succeed
Well, success is
and
not
that's
finite.
right. And it's like a very abstract concept, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, it really is because, I mean, look, like, millions of people have gotten book deals. Like, why not you? You know? Like,
Mhm.
it's there. You're gonna get it. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah. Also, someone out there, if you're listening, buy my book. Thank
Oh
you.
my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Well, this has been another episode of the Gen 20 podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you uh, took something away about having it all and let us know what you think. What's your all? You can DM us on Instagram or email us anywhere. We're there. And we'd love for you to rate and review. So leave us 5 stars on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you can listen. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.